China is becoming a pervert's paradise.
开始以为我进了什么不干净的小网站呢？这个 APP 甚至还有一个专门偷拍标签，你瞅瞅，随意盗用他人照片，杜撰伪随的故事，内容充满意义。
我明明都看到他偷拍了，
在这儿，全都是这种高清大图，
有非常多女生的照片，点进他们的照片，甚至连每天搭乘的路线都一清二楚。
There are apps running rampant across China that allow people to sneakily take photos and videos and hide them.
我明明都看到他偷拍了，但他的相册里面就是没有。
And then upload them to a marketplace where people are rewarded points and money and clout for sharing them. But it gets so much worse because after these photos are uploaded to this community marketplace, this place where people are trading them, then people start to map out these women's routes.
这里边还有公交路线。
So what they'll do is post a woman and they'll say she usually takes this bus and goes here every day for work. They'll post her location, they won't blur her out, and they will constantly follow and update them. But there's not just one app though. There's an entire industry of them, and they're taking over. This video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN, my VPN of choice. If you're not on a VPN, you are vulnerable. A VPN is a secure tunnel that blocks what you're doing on the internet from prying eyes on the outside, and it also keeps you safe. The best VPN is Surfshark VPN. Once you connect to one of the many fast and secure servers, you are safe, protected, and anonymous online. You can install and use Surfshark with one account on unlimited devices to make sure that you're safe across the board. But Surfshark is not only easy to use, it also opens up the entire internet for you. Use it to hop around to different servers around the world and open up different Netflix libraries. Avoid price discrimination by changing location and get better deals. There's so much you can do with Surfshark VPN. Go to surfshark.deals/LAOI86 to get up to 3 additional months for free. That's surfshark.deals/LAOI86 and use the code LAOI86 to protect your online privacy today. Some look like a news app. Some look like games. Some look like a weather app. Let's say, hypothetically, a woman is on the subway doing her thing, and then somebody takes a slew of photos from compromising angles or perhaps under their clothing. The natural thing, if this woman caught the person, would be to confront them, right? If she noticed. But with these apps, the camera doesn't even show up on screen. It looks like a game or whatever. Weather app or whatever one that people choose to download. The photos, after the person takes them, don't go to the Photos app. They don't go to that place where you can scroll through your photos. They just don't show up there. So think about this. The woman that's just been accosted by this person and had some compromising photos taken of her, when she confronts that person and says, go delete those, they're not there. Those photos go to a hidden folder, which masks the photos with fake ones that cover them. So if somebody's flipping through the thumbnails on their app, it's just a bunch of pictures of dogs or the sky or some documents or whatever. Also, you can't even access the photos that were taken without a password. The worst part is that people are being incentivized to do this, to go out there on buses, to go out there on the street, to go out there in your changing rooms, to go to places like the subway and take photos and videos of women in these compromising positions and try to get away with it. They're incentivized by doing this because there's premium versions of these apps that act like social media platforms. Again, where people are trading them, they're selling them, they're earning money from selling photos and videos of these women that they sneakily capture. And these apps are getting out of control because they're rewarding people for more and more risque or more and more compromising content. They're trying to play into this idea that any single man out there that has trouble finding a girl, the only reason that he's having trouble finding a girl, because they're strangers. If they break down these barriers and he follows her every day to work or wherever she's going and knows what she does and what she likes and all of this information that people, this community, are sharing together in this team effort of stalking, then the guy will be able to break the ice a lot more easily and then the girl will potentially like him and feel more comfortable with him. That's how they're portraying this. They're trying to say, are you a divorced man? Well, let us help you find girls on your route to work. Wherever you are, use this community to get closer to these women, and therefore you will have an easier time picking them up. It really is getting out of hand. And there's no punishment. That's why this happens. This has become such a big problem in China because no one can do anything about it. It's a one-party authoritarian state. The people are powerless. And it's kind of ironic because it's the People's Republic of China. Japan has had a huge problem with this sort of thing, but they do things about it. They create women's-only cars on the subway. They actually mandate that your phone makes an audible sound when it takes photos and videos. But China makes a marketplace for it and then does nothing about it. But here's the deal. You have these brave women that go online to share videos about how to get these apps downvoted on the App Store and therefore hidden from public view. If they go below a certain threshold, they're not able to be downloaded anymore. But I have a question, and this is a serious question, and it's a very, very ridiculous question that I have to ask this. If the Chinese government, the second most authoritarian government in the entire world, only second to North Korea at this point, has the ability to block the outside internet, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff, right? They block it completely. For their own citizens, it's illegal for them to go on those websites. If the Chinese government has the ability to hunt down every single person within their borders with 700 million government-run security cameras, yes, you heard that right, 700 million, they have the social credit system. They can round up over 1 million ethnic minorities in re-education camps in Western China by using big data and other Orwellian methods. Then I have to ask this. This is the big question. How can they not shut these apps down the moment they come out? When hashtags in China come out, when something they don't like comes out and it gets spread around social media, they shut it down like that. So why are these apps still going on? Why are these apps still proliferating? Why do women have to make hundreds of these videos asking for people to help get these apps downvoted? Shouldn't the iron-fisted government that supposedly keeps society so safe that people are not supposed to worry about this kind of stuff, shouldn't they take care of this? Shouldn't they act like the People's Republic of China? How, for years, do home security cameras in China become compromised and then entire ecosystems and industries around spying on people in their homes become a thing? Because yeah, that happened too. For years and years, people were being spied on via their home cameras and the government barely did anything about it. Why and how is that allowed to happen? Well, I can answer that question. It's because they don't care. They really don't care. I will spare you and her the details, but my wife was abused on public transportation and no one helped when she called out. Guess what? The police did nothing either. There was a serious attempt by a Chinese government official that I've talked about in previous videos to take advantage of her, and she narrowly avoided the situation. No one did anything about it. No one was held accountable. Countless women in China are victims of abuse at their factories, their offices, by their bosses. Women are increasingly arrested for speaking out in China. Not just for equality issues, for anything. Any sort of push for equal rights has been quashed. This isn't even to the level that I'm talking about in the West, all right? I'm not talking about your high-level progressive politics, your right versus left stuff. I'm talking like base-level women's rights, the kind that there's no debate for. That's the kind that China is trying to stifle. I mean, look at the central government. You need more proof? Look at these two pictures. Here's the central government in China. Here's the central government in the US. How many women do you see in each photo? How many? Count. In China, when you don't have checks and balances and you have one ruling power with a closed group of people who are not voted into power, what do you think is gonna happen? I'm tired of Chinese propaganda making it look like China is some sort of safe utopia for women. While people bicker about things like women's rights in the West, they trample their own women and they tell everyone that China is a paradise for women's equality. Moreover, let's learn here from this experience, from these apps, that the Chinese government absolutely does not take privacy or security seriously at all. I mean, this is the country that's watching every one of their citizens with eagle eyes to make sure that they do not cross the party lines. But hey, if you want to start an entire ecosystem, a marketplace, by taking compromising photos of people on public transportation, then selling them to other people and trading them with other people, apparently that's completely fine, especially when women are the victims. Don't forget, I have a Friday show where I cover everything happening in China. The good, the bad, the in-between, the viral, what's happening in China. It's called The China Show. You're definitely gonna wanna go check it out. You're definitely gonna wanna make sure you are subscribed to that because it's the only place you need to be when you want to find out what's happening there. Thank you very much. I'll catch you on the next one.
I've got exotic wares and funnel cakes.
Smells different.
You smell pretty good today. Wait, are you? Does smell different.
这份工作对诗云来说是很大的成就跟成长。
在大公司里面呢，福利还是比较好。
公司未来的发展会一直更新。
AI 无法取代。
我觉得他的成长这方面真的很快，有这样的公司很棒。那时候遇到。
There are some crimes Vietnam takes so seriously that if you're found...
China is becoming a pervert's family member. Guys, is this how it all kicks off? What in the actual... China is becoming a pervert. Guys, is this how it all kicks off? What in the actual hell is going on? China's elite hacking units hacked voting information of 40 million citizens in the UK. Like, everyone. You know what else they did? Something a little more close to home, as I'm American. They tried to put malware in America's electrical grids to cause panic and disaster. They also sent over 10,000 infected emails to hack American politicians, but not just that, dissidents and people who are critical of the Chinese government. The Justice Department indicted individual Chinese hackers for what Attorney General Merrick B. Garland called a 14-year effort to target and intimidate Beijing's critics around the world. The impact of what I'm about to tell you of what they could have just pulled off is actually insane. I think it's one of the biggest escalations we've ever seen in the conflict with China and the West. Have you ever searched for something online and then you start seeing ads and promotions about it from services you've never visited? Have you ever registered for your store's loyalty card and then a few days later you start getting spam in your mailbox and calls to your phone? Well, the people behind this are some of the most vile individuals that you will never meet, and they're called data brokers. Data brokers make an entire industry out of selling your private information so that you get more junk mail, spam calls, and your privacy gets breached. But what if I told you there's a company called Incogni that can go out there and fight these data brokers for you?
Alpsin 咖啡因发根强健精华液，在头皮上按摩吸收，免冲洗。实验证实，咖啡因复合物活化发根，让头发更加强韧。Alpsin 咖啡。
I'm proud to say that I'm working with Incogni. As soon as you signed up for Incogni, which is super easy, by the way, all you have to do is put in your information. Incogni will go out there and send lawyers' letters to those data brokers to make sure that your information gets taken off these lists. Not only that, you can actually use the interface to find out which data brokers are worse than others and what they actually do with your information. If you were to try to do this yourself, it would take you years, but Incogni makes it super easy and super affordable to take back your privacy today. Take your personal data back with Incogni. Go to incogni.com/cmilk and use the code CMILK to get 60% off an annual Incogni plan. Take your personal data off the market today. I've been warning you guys for how long now? The Chinese government's intents are not only malicious and self-serving, now they've become aggressive and proactive. Before, it was all about how can they control their own country, but now it's a lot greedier than that. It's trying to, on the surface, repair relations with the West, at least nominally, and then goes and commits seriously grave abuses against politicians, dissidents, journalists, and directly goes after people on American and British soil. The hackers were part of a group known as Advanced Persistent Threat 31, or APT 31. That has for the last 14 years targeted American companies, government and political officials, and candidates and campaign personnel. It's important to see exactly what China did here. You guys need some perspective on how absolutely insane this is. I read through the indictment. Since at least 2015, the conspirators sent thousands of malicious tracking email messages to the personal and professional email accounts of government and political officials in the US and elsewhere, including targets' family members and contacts. The malicious email messages, generally purported to be from prominent American journalists, contained email subject headers purporting to contain legitimate news articles, and the body of the messages purported to include excerpts from news articles from news outlets such as CNN and Vox. However, the messages contained an embedded hyperlink that served as a tracking link. If the recipient activated the tracking link by opening the email, information about the recipient, including the recipient's location, IP addresses, network schematics, and specific devices used to access the pertinent email accounts was transmitted to a server controlled by the conspirators. The conspirators used this method to enable more direct and sophisticated targeting of recipients' home routers and other electronic devices, including those of high-ranking US government officials and politicians and election campaign staff from both US political parties. By the way, you see how this goes both ways? The Chinese government wants you to bicker over Democrats and Republicans, but all they actually want is the demise of the USA. They don't pick a side. Anyway, gone are the days of China only caring about how it affects its own citizens. It already blocks the internet. It completely controls its own country, at this point akin to what North Korea does. It's one of the least free countries in the entire world. The current leadership in China is not satisfied with simply controlling its own people now. No, it needs to silence critics and control governments and the general narrative in free countries too. Well, guess what, Chinese government? I don't think that's gonna fly anymore. They got caught in what I think is the most malicious turn of events, the most evil, on-the-nose escalation of conflict I've seen in my lifetime. This is horrific, and it shows that China is on the path to serious destruction, not just of the countries around it in its general vicinity like Taiwan, but to the US specifically. It's one thing to beef up your military and do military parades and show off your new military tech and tell people that, Chinese people, we got your back. We're gonna defend you in the event of a conflict. That's normal, but to attempt a major hack of American infrastructure, that's just sick. Just like we saw with the Chinese government's paper on ethnically targeted bioweapons before, we are now seeing the true intent, the true sick, disgusting nature of the Chinese government. They target civilians, and not just in their own country with political control and censorship, but in the US and other countries as well. They're targeting the livelihood, health, and safety of American citizens. That's beyond messed up. So when American intelligence actually figured out what this malware was and where it was in the electrical grid and stuff, do you know what they found? It appeared to be intended to use if the United States were to come to the aid of Taiwan. The theory is that Americans would be too tied up worrying about their own supplies of electricity, food, and water to help a distant island that Beijing claims as its own. They want to sow chaos, division, and warfare in the USA, and they've been doing so through multi-billion-dollar propaganda campaigns, TikTok, co-opting influencers and politicians to what I call now the America Bad Party, which is, you know, when people would rather promote authoritarian governments abroad over their own government and claim that America is the worst country in the world for a variety of reasons. It's become quite fashionable these days. No joke, I think China and Russia have successfully created such distrust and division in American society that they have inadvertently created the America Bad Party at this point. They've gotten lots of American stooges to speak their talking points and spread their propaganda in America. And much of the American populace, they've gotten to jump on board and support this idea. I'm not kidding. The American Bad Party is a real thing. In fact, they have seen such great success in polarizing the US populace that they're laughing, simply laughing